My name's Joshua Stroud. I'm with Conscious Cultivators, also Conscious Productions, getting ready to celebrate our 25 years of concert promotion. And Conscious Cultivators really was established around the same time, even a few years before, as really just my hobby of a seed breeding program, but developed into a harmonious and tandem relationship with the concert production. So yeah, Conscious Cultivators evolved and continued as a medical farm, and then as soon as legalization came on board, we started producing and supplying genetics for other licensed farmers, eventually getting our own licenses for production, wholesaling. I also do R&D. We dedicate a lot of portions of our crops every year to research and development to further the strains and get things a little evolved as far as what we can see in the expressions of cannabis and ways it can help us all be more sustainable, but also profitable by having strains that we can use in any climate. Being here in Oregon, as you can see, it's wet and damp around me, or maybe you can see that, but that's something that the success of the farmer depends on. So that's just kind of a little introduction to where we're going and what we've been focused on. Hey, no coughing over there.
He's like doing the dabs.
He said, yeah, he's smoking some dispensary weed. I was like, stick to the farm stuff. But
so let's so what year did you start?
Well, I grew my first plant in '93 in Eugene when I was still in high school, and soon after that summer, my Aunt Darlene invited me down to Humboldt County to a big reggae festival that she was part of, and she wanted me to see and experience. And at that point, I was introduced to the culture of cannabis, which really surprised me. There was a lot going on in Eugene at that time. 420 was a big thing, all that, but I decided to stay down there and finish out my schooling in Humboldt County, and was able to meet and associate myself with some longtime legacy growers and breeders of the area, legends of Humboldt County that helped establish that as a world-renowned name and brand and location in the world. All the parts of the Emerald Triangle, Trinity, Mendocino, Humboldt, really enticed me to be there. And I realized, being at Rega on the River, that this is something that my family and the community where I was born and raised up in Oregon was, in a sense, lacking. And the sense of community and support of all the neighbors and people around is what really made me see that I needed to put some effort into fine-tuning my skills in growing cannabis and breeding it, and also being in the music industry, so that I could bring that up to that vibe up to Oregon. And it was probably 95, 96. I was growing outdoor crops there in Whitethorn and out on the Lost Coast, Kings Range, Honeydew, Paradise Ridge, Usaw. We had to spec all our guerrilla patches out all over the place. Some of my favorites were out in the Usaw, which is just no man's land, a lot of logging territory and sinking on state park wilderness, and some very sacred land to the Native Americans that originally resided there and still do at times. There's a lot of them out in the woods growing and doing their guerrilla patches like I was at the time, on a friendly basis, but also someone that kept our and influenced us a lot to keep our checks and balances as far as being kind to the environment, learning the 7th generation rule. Anything we do now, we got to think of how it's going to affect not just our kids. Everyone says, oh, we gotta look out after the kids and the grandkids. That is important, but think of their great grandkids and their great grandkids. And that's what really is lacking in a lot of things we do as a society, but unfortunately I see a lot in cannabis culture these days is lacking. So seeing that really made me want to just immerse myself. I learned that you could sustain a way of life as people did back then, and in Humboldt, growing and providing cannabis for really the world. And I remember the exact moment I decided I wanted to get into breeding cannabis was I was standing out above the Pacific Ocean, looking down on Shelter Cove and up on Chemise Mountain on the Lost Coast. And we had a 40-50 plant patch out there. It was a good 2-3 mile hike up over the mountain into the coast. And what my partner and I did, we carried plants out there and grew them from seed that he had. His Afghani pink Burmese land races that we started cross-pollinating. And one day I went out to the patch and I was standing there. I saw these pink hairs on a plant that I just couldn't comprehend what I was seeing, because we've always been seeing the white hairs and the red hairs you'd see on cannabis, the budgie like. And at that point, I don't know how long it had been, probably 45 minutes or longer. And my partner says, "Hey, are we working? Or are you going to be staring at that plant all day?" I said, "Oh, sorry, I just caught up in it. I was tripping out on it." And he goes, "Yeah, you've been looking at it for 45 minutes. And at that point, I realized, I was like, oh, there's so much more to cannabis than just bud. And I think, I was pretty young. I was 18 or so, and realized that there's all these expressions. That became my favorite plant, and the name Stinky Pink actually was what was going around. I also linked up with a woman who was a caretaker of the Mazari Sharif strain and was growing it for years out in the Honeydew area. A good elder friend of mine, Nancy, that has taught me a lot about not only music but also cannabis. And she was the one who kind of explained to me, her and Tim, who had the Stinky Pinky, how breeding cannabis and crossing those strains work at, finding a male, putting the pollen on it. We were actually paintbrushing the pollen on because we needed the herb to be Sensimilla, but we still wanted to continue the generations. And at that point, we, Nancy wasn't growing as much, and she said, "Hey, can you take on these Mazari genetics and keep them going?" These came from my father, who, I think it's the Brothers of Eternal Love, were bringing in hash with surfboards and stuff in the late 50s and 60s, and brought this hash that had these Mazari genetics in it. And she was able to keep that going for a long time. So since it had longevity and, some legacy behind it, I really thought that that's something I felt chosen to carry it on. It felt destined that I need to make sure this stays alive. And living off grid was very difficult. We weren't doing clone onlys at those times. We actually had to have, very selective and precise crossbreeding. Like I said, we'd paint brush the strains, keep the strains inbred lines to further it. Stinky Pink stayed Stinky Pink, Mazari stayed Mazari, Afghan Kush was Afghan, Cali Big Bud. There was only a few strains back then. Some of the newer strains that were coming about were a friend of my brother Ethan's and I's, a Ross that we'd meet at the Rig on the River originally, and we'd meet at the Mateel to trade seeds and plants even. I would give him some male plants at times even. He is one of the few people, he actually go by Mandelbrot, you guys know him, but he's one of the few people that actually was very into having male plants around. And I was like, wow, this guy's doing stuff like we are. And was telling a lot to my brother Ethan that, rest in paradise to both those guys. They both passed on, passed away after spending so much time growing weed. But you know, we'd start. My point there is we started crossing strains and family cultivars amongst other growers, and that'd probably been going a long time before me. But being able to find someone that was also pheno hunting like I was, and you know, wanting to cross things up, and he was also under the understanding that we needed to introduce, you know, every few generations. I was under the assumption every like 6 or 7 generations you need to introduce something else into your inbred line to keep it from running into hermaphrodite problems, things like that. This is way before research or testing, so a lot of this was just what we went on from passed on knowledge. You know, some of it was tainted, some of it was golden. You know, there was at that time a lot of farmers, I'd say most of the ganja growers in Humboldt County, Mindo, they thought pinching the tops of your plants created CBD, and you had less THC. Like, that's where they thought CBD came from. You know, it was more pseudoscience, if anything. We didn't know. There was probably some research, but we all know how legalization and prohibition went.
Yeah,
So,
I used to hear of them called no-high trees,
yeah,
where they would be like, "What the hell? This tree didn't get us high. That's a no-high."
yeah, that's it, exactly.
Yeah,
The no-high
that's crazy.
trees were what became in the 20 teens hemp strains
Yeah,
that are
right.
now
Yeah.
well-known Oregon cultivars, and you're seeing all over the Midwest now. But
Yeah.
yeah, those came from the Humboldt no-highs.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's what my mom used for medical, actually. She wanted something that didn't get her high,
Yeah.
but she felt good
She
effects.
felt better, yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched a little bit about it, but what does the word legacy mean to you?
So that's a good question. Legacy is, you know, because it's thrown around a lot in this industry and in a lot of things. You know, legacy is something that you can pass on to others, be it knowledge, be it an heirloom, be it your work even, you know. Some companies out there, legacy companies, because, you know, from parent to child, the company continues on. Legacy is something that will stand the test of time, something that will come full with what it promises. You know, legacy is not a gimmick. It's not something that comes and goes or a trend. Legacy is like a very steadfast thing that we all really need to pay attention to in our lives, not just in cannabis, but in our families and stuff. If everyone would slow down, pay a little more attention to what's important to your family and those coming up in the newer generations, we can have more synchronicity and make things work out more for, you know, legacy is something for the long term. Like I mentioned the 7th generation rule, you know, thinking about what's going to be positive and beneficial for the people behind us in our ancestry, that people, the generations to follow, to have them have something to believe in, something that they know is true and you know, what it says it is. And how that correlates to cannabis is a little bit in that sense. You know, a lot of legacy growers are giving you things that they've spent a lot of time on, a lot of care on their farm, taking time away from even their families, their friends, social life, to focus and sort the traits that are desirable in a cannabis plant and this could be for any plant, but we're talking about cannabis today. You know, anything green and growing can be continued on and molded and developed. And to me, that's what legacy is. It's something that's nurtured, it's put together in a way that it's meaningful. And through our family, you know, my aunt brought me down. She was an old deadhead and loved to, you know, enjoy the music scene, and realized how ganja and cannabis incorporated with that. My father, I remember when I was a child, he was, you know, there was part of the blackberry bushes we weren't allowed to go pick blackberries at. Never really made sense then. A lot of people can probably relate to this if your parents, you know, raised you in the 70s, 80s, or, you know, probably even now. It's a little more open, but here we had someone like, my parents and my elders being part of cannabis and continuing that on. Now, where I put my part in the legacy is to take those Mazzari genetics, those Stinky Pink genetics, those blue cheese genetics, or different genetics my father and mother had, and take all those and utilize them to reinforce the breeding that's been going on very unchecked in the cannabis industry in the last 5 to 10 years, where we have a lot of just untested breeding results going out there, people crossing things. There's all sorts of, I won't even say any of the names. Someone else probably already talked about it on this, but people that are just tossing pollen around and not knowing even where that pollen came from, or they're feminizing things, not saying if that feminization is causing hermaphrodite tendencies to come out in your plants. At that point, you're tainting the whole genetic pool of your region, your industry, your local economy, and the world even, because it's a chain reaction. A little bit of pollen goes a long way.
And that actually kind of leads us into the ethics thing. I mean, what do you think? What are the ethics, and how is it affecting the cannabis industry?
Yeah, there's a lot to say there. I'll try to just touch on a little bit, because that is a part of the ethics, is doing your checks, your own checks and your own research into plants and breeding projects you do. And this is just one part of it. We're going to talk about breeding right now in ethics, where you're not putting out genetics that you haven't established as being proven. Up here where we live in this land, my wife and I, she continues her medical gardening and breeding her plants that she's kept going for a long time. She took over the juicy fruit from me and bred it into something that actually smells like and tastes like juicy fruit gum, or just the most fruitiest thing. And what she does, she would never, people want those strains a lot earlier from her or from myself, but what she does is she'll take those crossbreeds and those genetics she did and now put them out into her own garden and take the chances on her own time before she sells them or lets someone waste an entire season or take up limited space in their garden because they only got 4, they're freed 4 plants here in Oregon, or you're free 6 plants in Cali or wherever you're at. And you can't be giving someone something that's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth, give them a bad experience, make them not want to, continue on with what we all love. So a lot of the ethics needs to be checked in our industry. We're following trends too quickly without just a little data. And it could be pure data just as easy as scientific data. That's how we've got through this industry in so long, through the legacy growers, growing proven genetics. I don't know about you guys, but I know several growers that have grown the same strain for 20, 30 years. And it's because they know it, they trust it, it works.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think that both could exist. We can have the people that are really shaking it up with genetics, and then also people that put out that stable product, because you also don't see a lot of consistency with products in the market either. It's kind of all over the place a lot of times.
That's true. And actually, I got to say something about that with ethics, is that the name game of strains, it's really inappropriate for anyone that would take a strain and call it something it's not for the sake of the dollar. Yeah. I understand if you're having problems with, struggling in this industry and stuff, but integrity and ethics are going to push you through and persevere till the end. And that's what's gotten us through all sorts of ups and downs in the trends. Here we are still, branding and growing our business.
Yeah, which leads us right actually to the next one letter,
Perfect.
which is G, which is growth. How have you guys grown over the years, and how would you perceive, the journey?
Yeah. I was just thinking about that the other day because of sitting there seeing my dad and how much work he puts into the farm and the dream, I had of owning a recreational farm, a legal farm. A dream I actually never even had when I started growing. I was probably 10, 15 years into growing before I ever thought this was a possibility, all of this. You know, I don't know if any of you thought there'd be a store in every block, more than 7-Elevens, but I sure didn't. And, you know, seeing that growth of the industry was motivating to have us grow. You know, in the beginning, the growth was from starting our patches. You know, like I said, I had a plant in Eugene, Oregon in my backyard. And then I had a patch in Humboldt, you know, with a few plants. And the next year I had a big patch. The year after that, it's like, I think maybe the third or fourth year I actually got camped, where they came and the police and the state took my whole crop. And I had nothing left at the end of the year. Hard year, very hard being a farmer, not having anything to show for your work. And so that next year I decided to, hey, I better not put my eggs all in one basket. And I had 2 or 3 patches. I think I had one close to the house, one deep in the woods, and, you know, one on the way. And that was just to make sure there was something left. And it worked out, because one of them got a lot of tops taken by thieves. One by my house, the deer ate a bunch, and hey, can't miss the far out one this time. So we got some stuff.
Well, not having neighbors is amazing.
Yeah.
Having to live right and dry humping somebody I hate that.
Oh man, it's rough.
Or an apartment building or some, yeah, no bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno.
Actually, real quick
yeah.
Hey Hans, you still there? You could still work on more of that if you want. We're taking down strains in the dry room at the same time. So, are you taking a break? All right, so where were we?
All right, we were on
let's talk about growth.
Growth, if you want, yeah.
I should, yeah. So we got our medical. My mom suffered a disability, unfortunately, of it was a bad car accident out in Dexter, Oregon. I actually grew up next to the Keeseys out there and stuff, and they had a lot of influence in my life and got me into the culture a little bit more, you know, through my aunt and all that. But when that happened, we got a lot of help from the community, but you know, it turned to where a lot of the burden was on me as the oldest child and my siblings, and you know, our family was really working to take care of mom. So when I was down there and discovered cannabis, and even the plant we called the no high plant, which was probably turns out CBD, I could get to later through breeding and research we found out and testing. But the thing about having mom come down there to California was that she was able to obtain her medical marijuana card. I think as early as '96 is when she got it, and it opened up some freedom for me to really not worry so much about what I was doing and the growing. And we got to use her medical patch there in Humboldt County to work on breeding. She's like, hey, find me a strain that is gonna work with me to not get me high.
Yeah, it's not happy. All right, so let's get in here.
I got some intense glare, but I guess I'll just glare through it.
Yeah, sorry, starting to get
That's all right.
The sun's starting to hit. So let's hit with accomplishments. What are you most proud of as far as accomplishments?
You know, I'm a probably the number one thing is still being here, growing ganja and being part of the industry and supplying other good farmers, all farmers, with genetics. I think that's one of our most proud moments, is that one clone company took a cut of ours through a licensing agreement, and because of the traits of it, the alien ET strain, being mold resistant, rain tolerant, we actually have some standing right now still in Oregon, day before Halloween, and we it stays good for everyone. They sold over 110,000 clones of that just a couple years ago. I'm not sure what they did recently, but because it's known to be resistant and resilient, and so that's something I'm really proud about, is being able to help other farmers be successful and giving some of the best genetics we can find in the world to people to really not only let them enjoy but be successful at growing. And that's really one of the biggest things. There's all sorts of other fun stuff, like winning cups and things like this, and being able to speak at presentations in front of crowds and conferences about genetics is very, it's very fun. Another thing, being able to breed strains that are dealing with different battles we face as growers now, finding a strain that's resilient to a disease that's been plaguing growers, and those are some of our biggest accomplishments. I mean, numerous cups, but you can check our Instagram for that. That's just more fun.
Yeah, I remember hearing about some strains you developed that were really good at the coast. Which I thought was really cool, because a lot of people living out there, it's hard for them to have the right genetics.
Yeah,
so,
that came from living in Humboldt on the West Coast, and
there you go.
I had a sunset view of the ocean for most of my breeding projects for years, and they really got acclimated.
So you knew which ones, So get that thing lit. Yeah, let's get going here. So the next...
I like your style.
That's right. The next C is C, or the next letter is C for community. What does the cannabis community mean to you, and where do you see it going from here?
Our motto for Conscious Productions is bringing unity to the community. And, the ganja community is important to me, the cannabis community in particular, because one, we know it's healing for so many people, brings peace of mind, tranquility, and helps people in their daily lives in so many ways. But now having a community that we don't have to be underground or in the dark about, and having someone that we can really contact our peers and bounce ideas, and our data and research has grown exponentially from having feedback from others and being able to be open talking about it. What was the question exactly? I wasn't sure if I was getting off track.
No, that was great.
Okay.
Cannabis community, yeah.
Yeah. And so bringing unity to community through having, I would like to see, more interactive research going on. And I would love to team up with anyone that wants to contact me about research ideas that we have, and experiments, and all sorts of ways we can even help you save money by doing this and still produce ganja for your farm. But also I'd like to see the community get more solid on their terminology, and a lot of us getting our standards more in place. Being a emerging industry, we don't see that as much, and I think it's holding a lot of us back.
Yeah, you'd think that, it's been 10 years of legalization, but the reality is we're still taking our baby steps, probably, in a lot of ways.
It's
Science
true.
And a lot of stuff that we still have yet to get going. Last question with the sun in your eyes there. Sorry, bud.
That's all right.
Last question is about you, as far as what's next for Conscious Cultivators. What are your plans for the horizon?
Well, we're actively expanding into other states. A lot of our strains have been carried off with medical farmers that used to live here off into other states, and doing what they're doing there. Now that I think it's the 2019 hemp bill passed, genetics are more free to flow across borders, clones and seeds, from what I'm told, and we're seeing our genetics established as very desired things in other states. So, and other countries. We're actually working in Colombia right now to help establish their markets and get growers set up with things that will handle the humidity of the jungle real well. One thing I'm super excited about, same with Jamaica, working with people in just great spots, and Malawi even. I would really like to team up with more people, and that's one of our big focuses, just teaming up to help you do better at what you're doing through our genetics and our knowledge. My wife Angela and I and our whole team has figured out over the years, and if we can really find the right people that are motivated for the same reasons as us. Yeah, we all want to be financially successful, but also let's develop this and move this going further into the realms that are just unknown to us. One thing in particular I'm working on right now is a skunk hunt that we started, I think that was 2019, 2020, during the pandemic. We figured we had a little more time on our hands. So, hey, let's find that old skunk. It originated or was definitely housed here on the coastal Oregon. And so we rounded up the genetics we knew: Oregon skunk, sweet skunk, OG skunk, roadkill skunk, deadwood skunk, all these skunks most of these from the Coast Range of Oregon, a couple from down in Trinity, along with the Trinity strain that we've been holding on to for the last 25 years, the 96U gene cut, to use in a lot of our breeding practices. Really trying to find that flavor that is going to make everyone undeniably say, hey, here's the skunk, which we've had great people say that. I've had a good friend of Sam the Skunk Man was like, hey, your skunk's right here at Conscious Cultivators. And so we'll be releasing those. We actually got some of the skunk coming out this year on the market, and you'll be finding us in more stores. We're teaming up with a lot of other wholesales to get our products and brand into other locations. We have a lot of farmers growing our genetics that will be also presenting to you as, grown their style, some indoor, greenhouse, outdoor, all that, but our cultivars, ones that, people know and love. So,
love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, any last things you want to say before we shut her down?
I really want to thank guys like you and the Oregon Growers Cup that have kept things going and persisted when times are tough out here, and we see trends come and go, and there's a few of us that stay going with our dreams. So I want to throw my appreciation out to all you legacy growers and all you new aspiring growers, anyone that has that love for ganja, to keep at it and really live your dream and live the life you love.
Welcome to Rebel Roots Farms in Rogue River, Oregon. Here we craft cannabis products for all different types of people in all different varieties. Portable, convenient items such as vape pens and tinctures for those on the go, along with premium dabbables like live rosin and diamonds. Our infused funny honey can make any day a holiday, and our THC and CBD Rick Simpson oils are widely recognized for potency and effects. We focus on capturing the natural essences of the whole plant with full spectrum extractions and natural cannabis terpene infusions. State-of-the-art equipment and collaborations with industry leaders allow Rebel Roots Farms to stay at the forefront of cannabis innovation and processing. We hope you enjoy our products as much as we enjoy making them.